Well, we've got a fun hour ahead, and we're going to be pretty real, as opposed to not being real, I guess. Because I guess what I'm saying is that all the other discussions so far have not been real. I'm joking, of course.
This is going to be it.
This is it. This is it. And I'll introduce our great panelists here, but thanks for being here for this gathering. And it's always so important every year, and now that we get to do it back physically, it's kind of nice to see your rosy faces here at the Legislative Leadership Summit, brought to you by APAICS and all of their wonderful partners. On our discussion today is Elder Care in the 21st Century, an Evolving Landscape. And they're saying that we changed the title. I don't know if we did.
We're going with the flow. We're going with the flow.
I'm reading what they gave me. Okay, it's all right. I don't know if I like these two panelists after all. Directly to my right, Daphne Kwok, Vice President DEI API Audience Strategy at AARP. All right. Okay. There's seats outside. As well, David Kim, President and CEO of National Asia Pacific Center on Aging, NAPCA. All right. Yep.
Thank you. I got one fan.
Yep. And Tiffany could not make it. We apologize, but they have had an extra cup of coffee to make up for that third panelist. Let's get straight into this. And when we talk about the title, and I'm just going to...
What is the title again?
Elder Care in the 21st Century, an Evolving Landscape.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
That is the title, is it not? Okay. Daphne, reflect on what that means to you. What is elder care in the 21st century?
Well, I think, as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders, what does it mean to us? I think it's very different than for all others. And I think, family very much is part of it, right? The intergenerational play of the whole caregiving and aging is part of it. And so for us at AARP and the work that I've been doing in the Asian American Pacific Islander community is very much focused on really, we need to norm these conversations. I think that's the thing, right, Richard, that we've been trying to do is norm really the life journey, right, especially towards the end of life. And so for me, it's really, how can we help people get this conversation at the table, have conversations, share, support one another, and really with real day-to-day tips to care for our loved ones.
David, what does it mean? 21st century.
It means we're all getting older. The more serious sort of answer that I should be saying is, the boomer generation, which many of us are a part of, that bulge demographically has now moved to the right on the scale of age. And what that has meant is that all of us of that certain age group are dealing with caregiving issues. And there are varying degrees of how to address that, right? There are some families that want to keep the parents at home based on their wishes. They're afraid of going to a facility where they don't know anybody, where they don't serve rice, where there's nothing there for them. And the possibility or probability of isolation is very real. But that creates a bunch of challenges taking care of parents at home, especially if there are also college-age kids as well. So financially, that's a real big squeeze. The other side of it are those families that have decided that they are going to put mom and dad into a facility, whether it's independent living, assisted living, and then it becomes really a challenge. Where do I find the information? Where's the best place to put them? Are they going to be okay? Can I go visit them? So this whole host of, as you said in the change title of the evolving landscape, many issues that many of us when we were younger didn't have to worry about because our parents weren't of that age. Well, now it's time for us to kind of do our duty as good children and figure out what it is that we need to do to take care of our parents. So I think that in a nutshell is sort of the challenge that we face now.
So, by the way, my name is Richard Louie. I'm a big fan of this topic.
half an hour into this.
Yes.
Who are you?
See y'all later. Bye-bye. Okay. But it's my first time. I'm sorry. I want to get a sense, though, since I know it's tough with all the potential hands here, but who has lived through a caregiving situation before? 3, right? And as they say, and has been said, you either have or you will, right? And I think I should raise my hand as well, and 2 of you as well.
In the back too.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go Ramon. Yes. Actually, if I count him as an audience member, we are at Lucky 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're at Lucky 7. Can you share with us, both of you, your personal experience with caregiving that you'd feel comfortable with? David, you go first.
Me? Okay. So my father passed away in 2018, and it was very interesting because he was robust. He passed away at the age of 89. And the speed at which everything happened was very mind-spinning. So in the winter of 2017, Christmas, everything seemed to be normal. But by the time January rolled around, he ended up passing away on February 12th. So the deterioration was very quick. The interesting part of the caregiving was not so much my father, but my mother. She is now 90 years old, and as many of you who either have experienced or those that are kind of going to get there, the caregiving is actually 2 parts, right? Taking care of the parent who is suffering, and then taking care of the parent who is, for lack of better, left behind. And sometimes that might be actually more of a challenge. I was just telling earlier to both Richard and Daphne that the place where my parents live, my mother has left things untouched since 2018, since my father passed, down to where he placed his eyeglasses. So if there was ever one last thing, if there was anything to never underestimate, it's this whole process of grieving. It is something that is just gargantuan, and it doesn't end. That's for sure. So anyway.
Okay, well, since he's probably going to spill the beans anyway, I guess I'll confess right now. So I work for AARP, and AARP addresses a lot of issues, but I decided I would focus on caregiving, right? And how important it is to prepare to care, because in our communities, right, no one's talking about it, right? But it's like every single one of us needs to prepare. And so I've been out on the road, right, talking about how important each and every one of us have to have the hard conversations early and not when you're in the throes of it, right? So this one here calls me out in these national conventions. And well, Daphne hasn't done it herself. It's like,
I did not do that.
It's like, yeah, I've been avoiding it myself. But I've been very fortunate. I have a 96-year-old father and minus 8, 88-year-old mother that I live with. And so actually, we've been very fortunate. Although now, within the last 2 years, really, I got thrown into the caregiving situation with falls that have happened with my dad, and now he's loss of short-term memory. So, and now, most recently, hiring caregivers right into our house starting January, and because my mom had fallen right before Christmas, and how difficult it was to get her to accept help. That we needed help in the house. Go, oh, no, I can do it. I'm like, oh, no. And so I think one of the things that I've learned, really in the first days of AARP, it's like for the caregiver, you have to take care of yourself if you want to care for your loved one. Because if your health goes down and you can't care for your loved one, then you're really in trouble, right? And so it's an ongoing battle, with my mom still. It's like, no, you need to sleep when he's asleep. Otherwise, you're not going to be awake. So I think it's a lot of what we have. And I encourage you to go to the AARP.caregiving.org website, because there's a lot of good resources. And I'm going to make a pitch, because he's the one that got me on this journey as well, too. There's a short little film, about 10, 12 minutes, called Circle of Love. And we highlighted 3 Chinese Americans and their caregiving journey, and one was Richard's as as well too. We have one for the Filipino community as well, about 10, 12 minutes. General Tony Taguba is one of the 3 Filipino Americans highlighted there. And we want to just be able to norm the conversation that everyday people are what they're going through and how they can help share. So I encourage you to see that.
Yeah, it goes both ways, Daphne, because she had me be in that, and I was like, oh golly, I guess I'm a caregiver. Like the 3 of you that raised your hands, that's a long distance to go like this. It feels like miles to just raise your hand, and that was my difficulty. I was like, how slow can Richard go in raising his hand that he's a caregiver? And I still think about it. Yes, I am. It's a full-time job. It's 53 million of us. It is $500 billion a year. It's big, 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 right? Gargantuan. And so I blame Daphne on this because I got into the caregiving, I'm a caregiver thing. And now, unfortunately, it has completely changed what I do outside of work and at work. I, of course, joke. I mean it in a very good way. I was caring for my dad who had Alzheimer's for 8 years, and he just passed in December. And it was, what a journey, of learning about yourself and other people. And, I don't know where I'm at in it right now. I mean, I'm exploring now the mental health, emotional wellness idea of what it means to be a caregiver. And they estimate, I think right now, there's only, 40 million Americans that go through an emotional wellness challenge. I think that's way undercounted just when we look at what we go through as caregivers. I mean, it's not like we're out in the street screaming at the sky, but it's not like, it doesn't come without some question of chutzpah in what you got. And that doesn't mean it's negative. I mean, I will say, to share one last idea about my caregiving, is that I have found that it has been really not only difficult, but there's also been a lot of joy along the way. And I know that for both of you, there are some laughs you've never had that you're laughing like in the belly, slapping the walls, and it's just so funny. Like I definitely went through that with my dad, and now as I go through that with my mother, there's a lot of new laughs, also some new cries. But it's, boy, talk about living the day a little bit more, it's a bigger sandwich. You're biting through all these layers and just gets bigger and bigger. And I mean it in a good way, because it nourishes us.
Well, I think one of the things that I learned from Richard is like, you do have to laugh, right? You have to find those joyful moments. And so you always do. Well, it's a very heavy journey, but you have to find those laughs. So can I interrupt here?
Yes.
So I brought some goodies to give to the audience, but they have to work for it.
Okay.
So Richard is an example. So one of the questions I want to throw out there, and whoever answers it correctly gets a little goodie from AARP. But what percentage of caregivers do you think are male? Whoever's closest, and you can't answer.
Oh golly.
Just throw out, what percentage do you think are of caregivers are male?
You want me to pick people?
20%, that's low. 35 is low. 60 is high. 50 is high. 45. Whoa. All right.
Oh my God.
50.
That's no fair. She brought toys. Golly.
That's right.
I brought
nice.
goodies.
My goodness.
So it's 44%. 44% are male. And most people would assume it's would be a lower number, right? So here, this is a little credit card case.
You know why people would assume it's lower?
Why?
Because it is, again, that we're not raising our hand as guys saying, I'm a caregiver. Correct. It doesn't fit into the norms.
That's right.
Right? Do you, when you're hanging out with folks, do you go, I'm a caregiver? No. And for women, it's more common that they would be very honest about their caregiving.
Yep.
And that's part of the dynamic. We got to raise our hands more. Right. We got to get rid of some of these gender stereotypes.
So I got another gift.
Do I get something?
No. All right. What percentage of caregivers do you think are millennials? 32 is high. 18 is low. 10 is low. 25. You said 25. 25%. 25% of caregivers are millennials.
By the way, who
So-
are the winners' names? Noi. I'm sorry. I'm getting. No. Okay.
Yeah.
Name and where you're from.
I had to,
Oh, I'm sorry. The organization.
yeah. I had some Chinese ones.
Fantastic. Congratulations on the win. And your name? Great.
Michelle.
And any organization you're with? Ah, fantastic. All right, great. Those are the winners. Anything else? You're good?
I got more, so if you want me to, I got plenty. I got several questions.
All right. Okay.
here.
You
We
want
can
to
do a little later.
You actually rule of three. Do one more.
All right,
Yeah.
the third one. Okay, let's see. Which question do I want to? Okay, this one is like, how many people turn 65 every single day of the year in the United States? How many?
4.
How many people turn 65 every single day in the United States?
We'd go higher in the number.
You just throw out numbers. Just throw out numbers.
A million
Per day.
per day.
3.5.
No, that's low.
I know it's low. Yeah, but I had to put a number out.
10,000.
Yeah. 10,000.
Really?
10,000
Wow.
10,000 people turn 65.
He was looking at your notes.
Yeah, really.
He was looking at your
I was
notes.
looking at the card thing, and I said,
Yeah. Daphne, thank you for that. Daphne always does this, and it's great to
great.
So 10,000 people turn 65 every single day of the year.
So-
That's a lot. That's a large number.
This is really a fantastic opportunity to say that our organization, the National Asian Pacific Center on Aging, would love to work with my friend Daphne to look at some of the statistics that she put out there, that 44% of males. We would love to help work with doing research on the ethnic breakdown, right? So are there among Koreans, there may be families in which mixed families where the son actually takes care of the mother. And so there may be some interesting insights if we did an ethnic breakdown to see which group is the one that's actually a higher proportion of that 44%, and then look at maybe some of the cultural aspects of that. So I think that's what our sweet spot is that we are geared towards helping those families in particular who have parents or aging seniors of limited English proficiency, and deal with a lot of the cultural aspects of it. So in many ways, what we do really complements what Daphne does. And I got to tell you, I'm really appreciative that Daphne's at AARP, a humongous mainstream organization, and she's the inside advocate for APAICS, which is really, really important. I'm just trying to help, elevate her in that regard. But we have the
Thank you,
ability
David.
to look at some of the stuff to kind of look at what other folks, when they may not disaggregate. That's what our area of specialty is.
And it's so important. Daphne, you have something to say?
No.
Oh, hi. I just had a quick question. I know I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I know that there a lot of families don't want to put their Asian elders into caregiving facilities, and they'd rather have them at home. Could you speak a little bit about kind of that challenge from your perspective? Because I know it's a big one. My mother is in a home. She's 95 because she has memory care issues. But there's a lot of people who, they just want to make sure their parents stay at home, but it's a financial challenge.
Absolutely. One of the things that I have asked our team in Seattle to do is stand up our call center. We had a wonderful helpline years ago, and in fact, during the time of Medicare sign up, we were fielding 10,000 calls a month from people, such as yourselves, that want to know, how can I get my mom and dad to sign up? What can I do for them? We all know those situations where the kids are sort of the translators of the family. Unfortunately, that went down, but now we're bringing that back up. And certainly one of the things that we want to become is such an enormous resource center, so that anybody who has questions about where do I begin with considering, keeping mom or dad at home, what are the financial challenges? What do I need to do? It's like almost, do I need to reverse child-proof our home so that falls and things like that are not prevented, I'm trying to say. But that's one of the things that we're going to be doing, is setting up the call center in 5 languages as well as English, so that people could call in to get information to address that exactly.
Yeah, there is an API notion, Lorna, and there is also just the mainstream input. Like if you were to calculate in your caregiving experiences for those who've gone through it or will go through it, the input is there's a cultural input, but I think the larger input is just caregiving within itself. And I think one of the great things when you bring in the POC or COC input to this is showing videos. I really found that was with the videos that she talked about, very powerful. Showing it with your loved one, because then you're able to, it's not brother, sister, daughter, son saying, okay, parent, you have to do this now. Instead, you're watching something. And this is why the in-community videos that she, 6 years ago?
Yeah, something like that, 6-7 years ago. Yeah.
They are really helpful to help folks that don't want to hear about, oh, we're going to have to start talking about this.
Well, they were the catalyst. We wanted to produce them so they're a catalyst for conversation around preparing to care, right? So through a video, hopefully to hear people's individual experiences, that it would stimulate conversation. We are so pleased that the impact of it, because people that went to that have gone to it have come back to me and say, Daphne, as a result of seeing the films, that we've gone back and we've had those conversations. And that is powerful. That's impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah, AARP.org.
And as you can tell, it's removing the now we're changing roles conversation. It's saying we have a friend here, the video, and it's going to show us what that journey might be like, and we can talk about it. It's not, again, upsetting the traditional power structure or dynamic in the family, which is, so I'm going to go to one other point here. And by the way, y'all, just keep on if you want to say something. Noi?
I have a question. I know that earlier your conversation was the millennium number is very low. The population we've been working with, majority of them are, they say, I don't have a future in here. My kids will be throwing us at the elder center and we will be neglected. So many parents who has a younger millennial children, that they believe that they won't be taking care of them. So there is a huge, I know as an Asian, we are very cultural, family oriented. How we can teach younger generation that have the hope, parents and family has a very huge gap.
Yeah. I will say one thing, that might be a perception gap, because the reality is there are 5 million students taking care of a family member living with a disability. 5 million students. There are 5 million children, 17 and younger, that are part of a caregiving team. And look, the numbers are great from AARP, and we've worked with them going through this data. The reality is, that perception is common across all folks that are living with a disability or getting older. I mean, I have that worry at the age of 72. Of course I joke, but I mean, we all have that concern to some level. And the reason why I want to bring that up is this is really encouraging. This is about an ecosystem of caregiving that we just don't see, but the numbers tell us it's just not Richard in the sandwich generation. It is actually students. It is actually children. And I say this because when you walk through the universities, sometimes they're not equipped to understand they've got students that are living through this right now, and they need help because they're working outside to take care of the loved one, the children that need support to be able to, how do I talk about caring for my father or my mother or my grandfather or grandmother, right? How do I talk about this? And the reality is most of them feel alone. See, that's why I'm saying all this. When you feel already alone in college, for many reasons, and then when you're a student, then you add this on top. I mean, caregivers already feel like y'all who raised your hand, you felt alone. You feel alone many times because it's you caring for the loved one.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to be the commercial because he's not going to say it, but I hope that you watch. Richard has a full-length documentary film called Sky Blossom, and it features 5-6 young people. That's why he talks about the young people and their caregiving role for their parents or grandparents. And so, Richard, it's streaming now, right? In the month of May.
Yeah, and I want to
talk about that.
I want to, AARP, EMD Serono, Alzheimer's Association, title sponsors of something. It's a nonprofit film, but it's about children from the South, the Midwest, the East and the West, and the Pacific Islands. 5 families, Black, Latino, Asian, Native, and white, caring. They're all young. They're aged 11 through 26 who are caring for a loved one in their family. And the reason why we synced on this was because if you can see that, then you're like, gee whiz, this is everywhere. And isn't it a great thing? Isn't it a great thing? It's not easy, but nothing, as they say, that's good is easy. And in this case, I really wanted to highlight when you see what they do, you might see what you do. And what I try to show in the film with them is that they really are true heroes, kid heroes, and that they really are, it's called Sky Blossom, Diaries of the Next Greatest Generation, because what I learned watching them is I believe they are the next greatest generation, because they inspired me. It was 5 years in the making, about 3 years filming, and it was Sky Blossom. If I may, what the word means is it's a term from World War II when we first started to have planes. And what would happen is if you were behind the lines and you needed medical help, if you're a soldier or you needed more reinforcements, you'd call it the paratroopers and they'd come and help you. And when these paratroopers would jump out of the planes, their parachutes would open up. And if you're on the ground, the old term back in the day was, here come the Sky Blossoms. So these kids are behind the lines, and they are the reinforcements. They are today's Sky Blossoms. And by the way, in the film, they also happen to be in military families. So, and that was important. One point on all of this is you can tell there was a bit of an inclusion element for how we went about it. And I have to thank Daphne again for supporting that.
So the film is truly inspirational. You see very young children caring, and it's bring your tissues every time I watch it. Just cry my eyes out. But the other thing is that Richard has a second film that's premiering as well, just premiered, Hidden Wounds, and about caregiving. And unfortunately for many of us, I think we're going to be here tonight, but it's also AARP is screening it tonight as well. But he's going to have that film that will be screening as well over and over again in the near future. But so watch. These are powerful, powerful caregiving stories, and we learn so much by watching them.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed, I'm sorry. I'm really impressed, Richard. Like, I've been tracking your whole journey from your own personal thing to building out this body of work and making it sort of multi-generational as well as across different races. I'm actually incredibly impressed that you really brought that as a leader to the conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's I appreciate that, and we have to be intersectional in the way we see things. On top of that, by the way, 4 out of our 5 heroes are girls.
10 minutes.
Now, I'm not pointing to you, but I'm saying, that's you. No, I just. But they're
Is that also intentional?
Yes, everything was intentional. And even our crew was 100% women. And because it's important to walk the talk, it was a very small budgeted movie, about $3 million, but 90% of it went to underrepresented subcontractors and contractors, either by gender or by ethnic background. And we all have to, every dollar counts, right? When we make these decisions, and this focus on caregiving was to highlight it, because I think it's a really noble activity to care for other people.
Thank you. Well, one, I want to share my heartfelt gratitude for you sharing transparently and vulnerably the truth of your caregiving journey. I know that it can be difficult, and as a fellow caregiver, it was healing
was one of the young people, like felt alone.
Yeah.
And ashamed of like, how do I talk about this with my
Yeah.
peers? When I was a student, when I went to college as a young professional. And I think over time I've come to realize that you can't heal what you don't reveal. And through the storytelling, through sharing truth, it's
Yeah.
healing for whomever that can be hearing a story that's experiencing it in isolation. And one of the things that struck me is when you talked about the social emotional wellness challenges, I'm curious if it might not be too intrusive for me to ask you, like, how did you respond to the social emotional wellness challenges, knowing that health-seeking behaviors are among the lowest among our community?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you for sharing that. And how old were you when you, now that you can reflect back, right? Because you probably weren't saying I'm a caregiver back then, but now when you look back, when did you realize that this began?
Well, I think it began when I was a high school student.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think I had taken on the identity as a
Yeah.
caregiver
Yeah.
until I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
And I think that only came when I started to go to therapy because somebody told me.
Yeah.
My loved one got hospitalized multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
You actually need to speak to someone.
Yeah.
Because you can't show up for your loved one unless you're also taking care of yourself. And that created a lot of conflict for me because it felt selfish. It's like, how can I care for myself? And as somebody that came from a low income background, like sometimes you're thinking about barriers to care. How can I afford
Yes.
access to mental health care? I think now I understand my relative privilege through my employment.
Yes.
I can access that.
Yeah.
But so many families among Asian
True.
communities cannot access
True.
it because it's not affordable. And we don't have access to culturally responsive and in language access.
True. Thanks for sharing that. That's great.
You know, it was interesting listening to you because I recently went up to Boston to visit one of our partner agencies and had the chance to go to Dorchester, which is a suburb of Boston that's almost 50% Vietnamese. What I saw was really exciting in a way because the first thing that came to my mind was we often fall back on a frame of reference that we're familiar with. So in this case, when many of us were young, our parents either took us to school or got us to school. Well, now I'm seeing the reversal of that where young Asian kids, I should say kids, but are dropping off their parents at an amazing community center. And they're fed, you know, breakfast, lunch, even dinner. They have exercises, they have activities, everything's in language. And at the end of the day, the kids, when they get off of work, they come and pick up their parents. It's fascinating that that's one model that we're actually trying to encourage. In fact, we're talking about helping them buy a bus for transportation so that if there's a route, that it also relieves the burden of folks having to drive their parents there. But the point about frame of reference is something that we're trying to work on to help younger folks not feel isolated or lost in terms of seeking out whatever options there may be to help take care of their parents and not feel guilty about their own mental health. So I hear what you're saying, and we're trying to do what we can to kind of provide those options and then also support them for folks to give them greater access to that.
We need those in every community all over the country, and it's really sad how few of those there are in the country that are really serving our community. And it takes capital, it takes leadership, it takes organizing. But boy, especially with the growing numbers, right? Well, we really, and so one of the things, and speaking to people, especially younger people too, is like we need more AA and HPIs to go into this field, and it's a very broad field. It's not necessarily the medical side or the therapist side, or but you know, as they say, nutritionists, dietitians, PT, all of that. We need people, especially those that have the language skills, to serve our elders. So we really encourage people to go into the field.
Yeah, I mean that question about mental wellness. That's why for the second documentary, I wanted to share as much as I could about that journey, And I don't know the answer personally. And we were just talking about it earlier is, I went through caring for my father and now my mother. Am I okay? And I have learned to say, I don't know if I'm okay. And it's okay not to be okay. And I think that discussion, like this discussion we're having here has been so helpful for me, because we'd say, Richard, are you okay? Because I would talk about caring for my father so much, and I would stop and actually think to myself, what is the question you just asked me? Are you okay, Richard? Or how are you doing, Richard? And I would stop and I would think. And that was the beginning of the practice of really asking honestly to myself and try to answer as honestly as I could. I'm really tired. Well, the last 3 years have been unlike the first 4. And I learned how to cry like I've never cried before. I've learned how to laugh like I have never laughed before. I've never hugged so many people in my life. I've met people that I think that as all of us think about our inability to understand disability and our inability to understand what mental wellness is, I gained 5 pounds during COVID. I still got a little rubber tire here, but my brain too, right? It's got a little rubber tire on it, and that's okay, right? That's part of me. I got to get back fit, and it comes with exercise. And I think when we can understand that we have this inability to understand disability, and disability is not negative bad. It's not, me living with the question of mental wellness, does that mean that I'm, as I said earlier, screaming at the sky? No, I'm not. Do I have a little rubber tire? I have a little rubber tire, but it's around my brain. And I'm just gonna work to try to make it a little bit stronger. That's okay, right? There are different grades. Everybody has their own, question about it. And I respect all of it. I have a sibling who also, reached out, got insurance, got therapy in a way that was very constructive during this journey. And I fully, I did not think my sibling was, but sometimes we put those words in, right? This. 10, 15 years ago, you said, yeah, I'm caring for a loved one. And I was talking to my therapist the other day, and I learned that blah, 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 blah. You did that 10 or 20 years ago. They go, oh, are you okay? Like that. Now I go, oh, that's great. That's super. And I think that the folks that have been talking about so openly have really helped to say, yeah, I got a little rubber tire. It's around my brain, And that has been so helpful for all of us, right? All of us, if we do need to, great, go access it. If you don't, did you go see the doctor? Yeah, I went to go see the doctor. Did you go to the gym? Yeah. Did you go to the mind gym? Yeah, I went to the mind gym. And I think that's been super helpful. But my journey, since you asked that specifically, I try to, but I also flip it on the other side. When I ask other people, how are you doing? I really try to listen. And that also is our onus when we ask other people. Don't throw that around. How you doing? Oh, good. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Really mean it.
There's still there's a lot of work to do, because listening to Richard, he is truly the unicorn, right? Because there's still a lot of our communities out there where the word therapist is like a curse word, right? And the thing that we all stereotypically have done is dive more deeper into our work. Do whatever we can to avoid the type of really honest self-examination that Richard has really kind of shared with us. The majority of our folks still don't do that. And there's obviously a lot of reasons for that, whether it's shame, embarrassment, what have you, or just simply not being able to figure out who do I talk to help explain how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So I thank Richard for continuing to put out the message for the next generation to hear that it's okay. And in fact, it's necessary to do that, because we're still confronting the older generations, the cultural barriers that prevent the honest sort of self-examination and conversation. So this is incredibly important.
Yes, I have. Thank you so much for the conversation. I'm on the mental health issue because I'm the organization provider of the mental health for Asian American, but also one of our projects is not just Asian American people come from many countries as refugees or from country, so in the Bay Area. I know that as a human rights activist and community activist, I see many communities, individuals who are going through mental health challenges. Oftentimes, they experience a victim by the loved one and by the community and the stigma and just basic discrimination. So when I'm working with this mental health setting, I notice that there's so much limited access to resources. Also, I'm creating those kind of more resources because our communities, we have rich culture, rich healing process, rich many things to offer. So instead of going to the support from Western mental health, some community members doesn't feel it doesn't work. So we are offering that traditional community-based mental health resources for the community, making sure that they feel comfortable. So I asked most of our clients, would you like to meet with the Western therapy? But they're from our own community, but or traditional mental health or mindfulness, some kind of practices. They choose own traditional culture healing mental health services. So please raise your voice. Our culture, our tradition, we have so much to offer, and we have so much healing. The technique, like for example, mindfulness education, lots of people can benefit when this comes to the mental health. So please advocate, stay in local level. Our communities, we feel comfortable to own traditional mental health healing process than something different. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, and I wanted to reflect on what the way you live through it. And it's not always the talking stuff. Doesn't mean, as I'm going through this, I don't need to always talk. Sometimes you can just sit. Sometimes you can go listen to an artist that is living that journey or singing about it. Go listen or watch a movie that's about it, right? Sit around and do that. I find going to the Alzheimer's Association events, and I was shocked as all get up when I was first start to go, that it was the most therapeutic thing that I could ever imagine. I've been doing it for like 6-7 years now, and I'm hugging like 300 people and crying like 150 times. But I walk away like, I feel like I can do a little bit better because I found that community. They're always saying, Richard, thanks for coming down and doing this. I'm all slobbering over myself. I'm so excited. But thanks for coming down to the community. I was telling Daphne all throughout the years, I was like, I've never found I'm getting more out of this than, whatever I'm doing there. But find your different things. That's not always talking, right? For mental health is not always that you need to say something or you need to tell somebody. It could be just living in it, because it's not, look, I hate to overstate it, but I do believe it can be a whole new chapter in the way you might see what you do in work and life and what you do. And that means that it's not all a rotten apple. I mean, it's part of it's not so good, that's for sure, but it's not, you know what I mean? There's some things, once we go at it, don't run away from it, go at it. And when you go at it, you bring your full what you are to it. And when we do that, we typically as humans try to see all the different layers. Of course, there's also the difficult layer.
Well, one of the things that, I always say to Richard too, it's like, so grateful that he's actually out there speaking, because for people to see a male talk about this, it has impact, right? And so it's not just all women that are living through this, but how important it is for a male, Asian American male as well too, to be speaking out on this is really impactful.
Good looking.
Okay, and good looking too, right? So I mean, I've been with Richard where he's spoken, and men will come up to him, and one of the ones in Silicon Valley that we did, one young man, literally, you could see him, the wheels in his brain turning. He said to Richard afterwards, like, I'm in the caregiving healthcare business, And he never realized he was a caregiver until he heard Richard. And then it clicked. He goes, my wife has chronic illness and I'm taking care of a young child. He goes, I'm a caregiver. So that for that one individual, that person realizes just listening to Richard and his story. And so I keep telling you that your impact and your legacy is truly, truly making people's lives the better. One more question. I think we're also out of time.
Are we out of time?
Almost. Yeah, one more question.
She's moderating now. I'm
We always have time for you. That's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daphne, Richard, and David. I'm trying to think, where do I start with this? Because Pacific Islanders are missing in the narrative across the nation. And so my name is Tonu Ube, and you call me Tao. I've known Daphne for many, many years. So I'm with the Regional Pacific Islander Task Force, co-founder and also the co-chair of that. And we are a multi-county focus in the Bay Area, all 10 counties in the Bay Area. What I found that we have a lot of caregivers that live their live-ins. And they would pop up and they said, Tao, I didn't know there's a lot of people in Pacific Islander, Marin County or Napa. And turns out our Fijian community are live-in caregivers. But I was distracted and didn't know how to, I have to bring it all together where, we can have a decent conversation, speak to all of them. But what I'm finding anecdotally is there's abuse also in the community. They live in, but a lot of it abuse from the person they're giving care for. I hear this and I said, well, we need to address this. But I think of what David was saying at Daphne, you're on a national level. I think there has to be an organized approach because we're national level. Daphne, we've been aggregated with the Asian American data, still not disaggregated. So you can't really see us. We're invisible everywhere. But since the COVID, I spoke yesterday on a panel talking about all of this, but not the caregiver. So I made a concerted effort to be here. My point is, I love what I'm hearing, and I love that you have one of our native folks in there. The thing is, there's a lot of us Pacific Islanders are doing the caregiving in the Bay Area as well, a lot. So a lot of them are my relatives. The Tongan community growing. But I always ask myself, do we have a process? Is there an organized fashion when we talk about, workforce development and things like that? I said, wait a minute, we're missing a population here. We're totally missing this from the workforce conversation to say, how many are caregivers? And these are caregivers that my sister-in-law, after the patient she was caring for passed away, the neighbor came and pulled her. They said, can you care for our mother? And this was like working the blocks that she was doing. And I said, so where's Bill? Well, Bill passed away, but so-and-so. And I sit there and she loves her job. She's professional, but what I'm saying is that can we bring it, is there something that we can all do? If we can do it regionally or, an area where we can have conversation, heart-to-heart conversation, sharing Richard's, stories. I don't even think our community is watching these, on their time, but we need to push it to them because for Samoans and Tongans and all of us, it's an honor to take care of our parents. So it's a cultural thing. We all have to do it, and most importantly, the reason why your numbers are low for men because that's a job of the daughter. And so now, but it's shifting, like you said, because of the young generation. And the younger generation, the boys who say, no, I want to keep that too. I want to take care of that. So there's love there. There's a cultural aspect there that could be learned from all communities. And so mine is really just to share my thoughts because we missed a speaker.
Yes.
And I also want to be not sort of a conduit to you all and really say, what can we do? What's our next step? Because it's so important to use the Pacific Islander and really be at the table with you. I think we can do better than this. From our community, we can take the blame too. And I will take that too. So, but my point is, Richard, thank you so much, because we love to adopt Richard too.
Absolutely.
I am PI too, you know. I am. I took a blood test.
I missed the boat.
Yeah, no, but you know what? It's just, we're a mixed nation. It's
We don't talk stories.
I'm API, so there. No, but you do allude, and thank you, Tao, because Kaleo stands up in the movie and says, "I'm taking care of Grandpa. I'm not going to go to college," and he's 18. A really great Native Hawaiian son, and he's out there, and it's really a beautiful story. And he's our one of the 5 that is not female, and it's so important. By the way, one reflection for you, because you do talk about how can we understand the disaggregated understandings around caregivers. There is a family caregivers, or there's a caregivers union in California that you can check out. They're fairly active. And if you want to drill down into what you are so well underlining, is that in our caregiving structure, there's a lot of unformalized help happening. And this affects especially what you're talking about right now, our PI community and other communities that are underrepresented and not without voice. And do you two know of any other resources? And then I'm going to ask you for one last question as we close out.
No, but that's a good one there.
Yeah, the union there, and I'm not saying I'm pro or against union, I'm just saying that's one group that is organized. Any last quick comments here? Quick though? Yep.
I would be happy, our organization would be happy to donate any theaters, Richard, around the country for you and Daphne to show the films. Just let us know, and we're happy to do that for whichever community would like to do that.
Okay, that was recorded, so yeah, I'm coming after you, Lorna.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for having this conversation. At the federal level, the Build Back Better plan, which is President Biden's really big infrastructure, it's all encompassing. I do want to mention that there are federal bills that are being presented to
Yeah.
quality affordable home and community-based services, or HCBCs, that expands long-term care services under Medicaid. And so if you guys could just keep this on your radar, and you don't necessarily have to track the legislation because there's not a lot of progress being made.
Yeah.
But if you are interested, I just want to give this a shout out and say that this is something that has federal consideration. Yeah. So I'm a fellow right now with APAICS, but this is an issue I'm passionate about. So it's really
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We have more legislation on the state level, local level, and federal level than we've ever had before. But like you're saying, the gap is wide, and we're inching closer together. There's some states that have led on it, right? And I did a great sit down with Secretary Becerra at HHS, who's fully behind this. He took care of his father, now taking care of his mother, and he's a friend of the community and definitely understands this stuff. Any last quick comments or questions? Okay, so yeah, you got it. One last question for our great panelists here is what as you look to the 21st, later in the 21st century, what are you seeing when it comes to the space of caregiving? Because we discussed a lot of great topics here. What gives you hope that you see that's happening in the future?
Oh, come on, David.
Go ahead, David.
I have a bit of optimism, actually. I have a lot of faith in our communities to do the things in learning and understanding and accepting the challenges and overcoming the challenges in taking care of our parents and being the thought leader for the rest of American society. And the reason for this optimism is the fact that culturally we're having more of an impact, whether it's gochujang now being the hottest condiment, whether it's Parasite winning an Academy Award, whether it's athletes, entertainers, we are becoming more on the radar of America. There's no reason why we as a community, a collection of communities, can't also play that thought leader role in what's the best way to take care of our parents, because we have the values, right, of honoring our parents. And we just need to figure out how to do it and how to do it different ways. But I think that's what lies ahead for us.
Thank you, David.
I think for me too, it's also optimism, especially among the young people that, young ones are going into all different fields, right? So like social work, right? There are more AA and HPIs going to social work. How important is that field for this kind of line of work too? And so seeing us get into the different fields is very important. And so I think we need to continue to promote it, and that we're willing to talk about this, right? When we first started getting into this, I didn't think anybody would come to these conversations, but these kind of conversations can go on for hours because people really want to share. Asian Americans speaking up in public to people they don't know about this stuff, it's like amazing. So the last thing I want to do, Richard, is I got some rest of the goodies for everybody else that didn't get one. So I'm going to give that out since I've been holding it. And then also, I had a few extra copies of, and for those from the Bay Area that may know Asian Week, which did go out of business many years ago, but we did a special edition with them over the years. And this one has a lot of caregiving in there. And I think Richard's story is in there as well. There are a lot of the resources as well, too.
That's not one passing it out. That is not one
But just really want to thank everyone for coming and joining and being a part of the conversation. You got one, right?
Yeah, you too. Good to see you too.
By the way, anybody out there who has a master's in social work, I've just realized that we're hiring more MSWs, and they're all women at our organization. So to put a fine point on Daphne's comment, yes, the more that we can get professional people that have gone to school for social work, that's a very important field for us.
Absolutely.
Daphne, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For
Thank you.
all the kind gifts. Thank you for gathering us as always.
Yeah.
David, thank you for being here. I also, absolutely. And one last comment about why I think it's hopeful for the future is we had a couple of tough years in a lot of different realms. But what happens with perfect storms is you get perfect rainbows. And there's so much, we had probably 5 to 10 million new caregivers during COVID. Now they haven't come out yet. We haven't codified them. The business cases haven't been written about them, right? And we've talked about this. What is this new group? And they cross all generations. So I do think that what's hopeful is before this door closes is the opportunity to do something new about caregiving. People understand the language of what this stuff is. And that's why the opportunity is riper, I think, than ever. If we were to think about the perfect storm and the perfect rainbow on the other side. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.